Okay, let's dive right in. 80% of internet users, I mean, that's huge, have searched for health information online.
Yeah, it translates to something like 59% of all adults in the U.S. It's really staggering.
Absolutely. And you think about just the sheer ocean of medical info out there now.
Hmm.
If you're listening, you're probably someone who wants to cut through that noise, get to the reliable stuff.
Absolutely. And the internet has become the default resource for so many health questions.
Yeah.
That definitely includes specifics about our vascular system.
Exactly. So today on the deep dive, we're navigating this online world of vascular info. We're using insights from Rutherford's Vascular Surgery and Endovascular Therapy, the 10th edition.
A great resource.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, having all this info readily available is amazing, right? But it's kind of like an unregulated library.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
You might find gold, sure, but you could easily stumble on, well, fool's gold. You really have to know what you're looking for, don't you?
That's a crucial point. While it empowers patients, that lack of strict quality control, it means accuracy is just not guaranteed.
Right. So our mission today is to help you make sense of this landscape.
Hmm.
We want to explore what vascular health info is actually out there, flag what to watch out for, and understand how this whole online world shapes your understanding and your engagement with your own healthcare.
And we'll look at resources for both patients and medical professionals, too.
Perfect. Let's unpack this. Shall we start with the patient perspective?
Sounds good. Let's focus on patients first. When it comes to health info online, it really is a double-edged sword.
Okay.
On one hand, it's incredibly empowering. I mean, patients can research doctors, understand potential costs.
Yeah, get a feel for things.
Exactly. Learn about their conditions, say abdominal aortic aneurysm, that dangerous bulge in the main artery.
Right.
Connect with support groups, become more active in their own care. It gives them a sense of agency.
It's like having a medical encyclopedia right there, 204/7. And it sounds like this online research often happens alongside actual doctor visits.
That's what the research suggests, yeah.
Yeah.
Many patients do their homework before an appointment.
Okay. To prep questions, maybe.
Exactly. Or just to understand what to expect. And then often they'll search again afterwards, too.
To reinforce things.
Precisely.
Huh.
To solidify what the doctor said, make sure they understood. And this can lead to, much better informed patients who are really participating in decisions about their health.
That's the ideal scenario, definitely.
Sure.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There always is. That's the less rosy side.
Yeah.
The absence of rigorous quality control, the lack of oversight, it means inaccurate, misleading, sometimes completely false information is just out there, easy to find.
And that has real consequences.
Oh, absolutely. Serious consequences. It might delay someone seeking needed medical help.
Mm-hmm.
It can foster distrust in their doctors, lead to patients not following treatments correctly.
Right, noncompliance.
Yeah. And it even wastes healthcare resources because providers then have to spend time correcting all this misinformation.
And it's not just about whether the information is correct, is it? There's also the issue of just understanding it.
That's a huge barrier, a really major one. Study after study shows most health websites are written at a reading level that's way higher than the average American adult,
Which is about.
around a 7th or 8th grade level on average. But these websites are often much more complex.
So even if the info is good, people can't access it because of the jargon.
Exactly. It highlights this critical disconnect between the people creating the information and the people who need to use it.
Okay, so for someone listening, trying to find reliable info, where do they even begin? Are there tools, signs to look for?
Yes, thankfully there's some established tools that can help. One key one is the Discern instrument.
Discern.
Yeah. It's basically a questionnaire. Both patients and professionals can use it to assess the quality of written info about treatment options.
Okay, what does it look at?
It breaks it down into 3 parts. Reliability of the source, the quality of the information specifically on treatment choices, and then an overall rating.
And how do websites generally score?
Well, interestingly, while many score as good or even very good, no health website reviewed in the studies actually hit an excellent rating.
Wow. None.
None. Which kind of suggests a systemic issue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But government sites like from the NIH or CDC, they tend to do better, often rated very good.
Okay, that's a practical tip. Stick with official government sources when possible. What else? Any other indicators?
Another widely recognized one is the HON code. That stands for Health on the Net Foundation Code of Conduct.
H-on code?
It's a certification. Websites can get it by sticking to a set of ethical principles for presenting health info.
Like what kind of principles?
Things like clearly stating the expertise behind the info, making sure it complements, not replaces, professional advice, protecting user privacy.
Right.
Clearly citing sources, justifying any claims they make, being transparent about who owns the site, funding any advertising. It's really focused on the ethics of the presentation.
So if a site has that H-on code seal, that's a pretty good sign?
It's definitely a positive indicator, yeah.
Oh.
But, and here's another catch.
Uh-oh.
Research found that even among sites claiming to use the H-on code, only about 18% in some studies were actually certified.
Oh. So you still need to be a bit skeptical.
Exactly. Look
Yeah.
for it. It's good, but it's not a foolproof guarantee on its own.
And it sounds like there are even more tools out there for evaluation.
Oh, yes. There are others like the Ingledew criteria, which focus more on relevance and understandability for patients.
Okay.
The JAMA benchmarks from the Journal of the American Medical Association, they emphasize scientific rigor. Then there's the LIDEA instrument, looking at accessibility, usability, reliability. The Michigan score.
Wow, okay. It's complex.
The sheer number of tools really tells you how tricky it is to properly evaluate online health info.
It's almost overwhelming just thinking about it. So, okay, focusing back on vascular information specifically, what does the research tell us there? Is it generally better, worse, the same as other areas?
Well, what's interesting, and maybe a bit concerning, is some older research hinted that inaccuracies might actually be more common on sites that tried to seem credible
Wait, really?
by
Huh.
citing, medical literature, textbooks, clinical guidelines. It's counterintuitive, I know.
Yeah.
And specifically for vascular topics, there just aren't as many studies compared to fields like, say, orthopedics.
Right.
One of the early studies, this was back in 1999, it looked at patient info for things like AAA abdominal aortic aneurysm,
Okay.
carotid endarterectomy, that's surgery to clear neck arteries to prevent stroke,
Got it.
and leg ischemia, which is reduced blood flow to the legs. The findings back then, pretty concerning. Overall, low quality, lots of misleading or sort of unconventional info.
1999 is a while ago in internet years, though. Have things gotten better?
Well, there have been more recent studies looking at a wider range of vascular conditions. They've used different evaluation tools, and honestly, the results are a bit mixed.
How so?
Like for carotid endarterectomy websites, one study using that LIDA tool found okay accessibility, but poor usability and reliability.
Okay.
But another study, using the same tool, rated them as acceptable across all those areas.
Huh. What the difference?
Could be improvements over time,
Yeah.
could be differences in how the researchers apply the criteria, or maybe just the natural variation in website quality out there. It's hard to say for sure.
So even for the same specific condition, the quality you find online can really vary. But is there one finding that's consistent across these studies?
Yes, the really consistent finding is readability, or
Yeah.
rather the lack of it.
Back to the jargon problem.
Exactly. Across the board, studies show online resources aimed at vascular patients are just written at too high a level.
Too complex.
Way too complex. Patients struggle to understand. There was one study on lymphedema resources that's a swelling condition.
Yep.
It concluded they were far too sophisticated for the average U.S. adult, essentially missing the intended audience completely.
It seems like written info isn't the only game in town anymore, though. What about video? YouTube is massive. People must be looking for health stuff there, too.
Oh, absolutely. YouTube's popularity as a health source is definitely growing. Over a third of patients report watching health-related videos.
Wow.
But research on the quality of these patient videos, especially in vascular health, is still a bit sparse.
But what is known?
Well, one study did look at YouTube videos about abdominal aortic aneurysm, and it found they generally scored poorly across different quality checks.
So similar problems to the written stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. YouTube's great for visual learning, obviously, but for vascular surgery info, it seems it's largely unvetted, potentially misleading. You need to be cautious.
That is concerning. You'd kind of hope the visual format would make it easier to understand, but if the core info is flawed.
Exactly. Researchers are suggesting these patient videos really need some kind of peer review
Makes sense.
to make sure they're accurate, complete, and they need regular updating to match current medical guidelines.
Right, because medicine changes.
It does. And importantly, doctors and other providers can play a huge role here. They can help patients navigate YouTube by recommending reliable channels or specific, trustworthy videos.
This all really brings us back to the role of the physicians, doesn't it? It sounds like they absolutely need to be aware of what their patients are finding online.
Precisely. Patients often put a lot of trust in what they find online,
Yeah.
and that can significantly influence their decisions about treatment, the questions they bring to appointments, even whether they seek care at all.
So doctors need to know what's out there.
It's crucial so they can communicate effectively, clear up any misunderstandings, and importantly, guide patients towards high-quality, reliable resources.
So it's not just about damage control, correcting bad info, but also proactively steering people towards the good stuff.
Exactly. And that responsibility goes beyond individual doctors, too.
How?
Webmasters, the people managing websites for healthcare organizations, professional societies, they have a key role in making sure their online content, written and video, meets high standards.
What does that involve? Like best practices?
Yeah, things like clearly identifying authors and their credentials,
Yeah.
citing reliable sources, being upfront about when the info was created or updated, disclosing any sponsorship.
Transparency.
Exactly. Optimizing the site structure, encouraging interaction maybe, ensuring accuracy, of course, and really paying attention to making it easy to read, that readability point again.
We've talked a lot about publicly available websites and videos. What about the more sort of walled garden spaces, like electronic patient portals?
Patient portals. Yeah, they offer an interesting alternative. They give patients a platform to access their own health info.
Like lab results?
Lab results, secure messaging with their doctors, appointment scheduling, sometimes even educational materials chosen specifically by their healthcare team.
Sounds great. Are people using them much?
Well, that's the surprising thing. Most hospitals and providers offer portals, but patient usage is still relatively low.
Huh. Why do you think that is? Given the convenience, maybe they're just not user-friendly enough.
That could definitely be part of it. Studies show patients generally like the idea, especially the health library sections, with credible info.
Okay.
But some report difficulty navigating the portal, finding what they need, and there's a clear desire for doctors to actively point them to specific, relevant materials within the portal.
So more provider involvement could boost usage.
It really seems like it. If doctors were more engaged, maybe sending tailored educational links through the portal, it could encourage more patients to use it and ensure they're accessing better quality info.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've covered a lot on the patient side. What about online resources for physicians themselves for their own education or professional lives?
Right. When we look at online resources for physicians, the focus in the research tends to be on two main areas: the quality of websites for training programs and the use of YouTube videos for learning vascular procedures.
Okay, let's start with those training program websites. Why are they so important? Who's using them?
Well, for a long time now, really since the late 90s, applicants to residency and fellowship programs have relied heavily on program websites.
To decide where to apply.
Exactly. They're crucial for that initial research, figuring out which programs fit, all the way through to making their final ranking decisions.
So high stakes for the programs. How good are these websites generally?
Well, a study specifically looking at vascular surgery training program websites, it found some significant issues.
Oh, like what?
Many weren't consistently accessible. They often lacked comprehensive information, like missing key details applicants need and their overall quality, looking at content, organization, design, usability. It was often below accepted standards.
That's a pretty big problem if that's the main way applicants are getting info.
It really is.
Yeah.
And interestingly, when they compared vascular surgery sites to, say, interventional radiology or cardiothoracic surgery,
Yeah.
vascular surgery had more content than IR, but actually less than cardiothoracic surgery. And there were even big differences between programs competing for the exact same pool of applicants.
So inconsistency even within the specialty.
Right. It really highlights that vascular surgery programs need to pay close attention to their websites. A well-designed, accurate, comprehensive site is a major recruitment tool.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on to YouTube for physician education. Sounds like it's just as popular with trainees as it is with patients.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Studies show almost all surgical trainees and senior medical students use videos to prep for operations.
And YouTube is the main source.
Overwhelmingly, yes. But, just like the patient videos, the quality of surgical videos online is, well, variable.
Okay, specifically for vascular topics.
Yeah, for vascular surgery, the research consistently finds only a small percentage of videos are really high quality.
What makes a video high quality for training purposes? And what are the common problems?
High quality usually means it includes complete, educational content,
Yeah.
demonstrates proper technique that aligns with current guidelines,
Right.
and often has helpful features like clear captions or narration explaining the key steps.
And the problems.
Many YouTube videos for vascular procedures just lack these things. Studies find incomplete content, technical variations that maybe aren't best practice, sometimes inaccurate information, or even approaches that go against established guidelines.
Can you give us an example or two? You mentioned variations in technique based on specialty earlier.
Certainly. Like one study on amputation videos, on average, they only covered about half the necessary educational points.
Wow. Only half.
Yeah. Another on carotid endarterectomy found only about 17% were high quality, meaning they clearly showed key steps and had good narration.
Okay.
And yes, technique differences show up. For carotid surgery, maybe a neurosurgeon favors a certain type of patch closure technique that's different from what a vascular surgeon typically does.
I see.
Or gaining access to the femoral artery. Vascular surgeons usually demonstrate the guideline-recommended ultrasound-guided way, but other specialties might still show the older landmark-guided technique. Even basic things like removing a central line inaccuracies have been found in those videos too.
It sounds like, yeah, a bit of a minefield for trainees trying to learn from YouTube.
It can be. And interestingly, the Society for Vascular Surgery's own YouTube channel, it tends to focus more on career development, patient education, not so much on detailed procedural videos.
So what's the solution?
Well, researchers suggest it would be incredibly helpful if professional organizations, academic centers, publish more peer-reviewed operative videos on open platforms like YouTube. That would provide a much more reliable resource for trainees.
That seems like a no-brainer. Okay, so beyond videos, what about other types of online learning for physicians? E-learning.
Right? E-learning. Basically using technology, online platforms for teaching and learning. It's actually more common in undergraduate medical education in the U.S. than in graduate training, like residency.
Interesting. What are the advantages for residents?
Well, flexibility is a big one. They can learn on their own schedule. It minimizes disruption to their clinical duties. They can go at their own pace.
I can see the appeal.
And they like being able to choose subjects that match what they're seeing clinically at the time.
Are there downsides? Concerns?
There are some. Potential for a high workload, maybe residents trying to get around duty hour rules,
Right.
and maybe less socialization compared to traditional learning. Crucially, for e-learning to work well, you need strong faculty buy-in and support.
So the teachers have to be on board.
Absolutely. Needs leadership support, resident input, staff support, active faculty engagement. But it can benefit faculty too. Less prep time, standardized teaching.
And the bottom line.
High-quality e-learning from reputable sources can definitely help trainees rely less on those non-peer-reviewed, potentially inaccurate sources they might stumble upon online.
Okay, we've covered online impacts on patients, on physician training. Let's shift now to online physician ratings. These websites seem to be everywhere now, don't they?
They really are. They've seen significant growth. These physician rating websites, or PRWs, show practice info, expertise, hours, insurance.
The basics.
Right. But critically, they also feature patient reviews, numerical ratings, and written comments.
How much data is actually on there? Does it vary?
It varies a lot by specialty. Orthopedic surgeons, for instance, tend to have a really strong presence.
Yeah.
Others, like radiologists, much less so.
What about vascular surgeons? Where do they fit in?
Well, there isn't a published study yet, but our own unpublished work looked into this. It suggests a high percentage, maybe around 87%, of vascular surgeons have been reviewed at least once somewhere online.
Okay, so they're being reviewed.
Yes.
Okay.
And the basic profile info seems mostly accurate,
Right.
but the number of reviews per surgeon is generally quite low.
Not many reviews each.
Right. And we saw a complete lack of physician response to any reviews, even negative ones.
Really? Why do you think there's such limited engagement from doctors on these sites? What's holding them back?
Well, there are a few key things. A big one is fear of violating patient privacy, FTPA, when responding to specific comments.
Especially with anonymous reviews.
Exactly. It's hard to verify anonymous complaints, too. The AMA, the American Medical Association, actually gives some guidance here.
What do they suggest?
They recommend physicians respond generally online, maybe thank people for feedback, but take specifics offline privately if possible.
Okay.
They also suggest politely encouraging patients to leave reviews, because most reviews actually tend to be positive.
Interesting.
But yeah, that issue of potentially false or biased anonymous reviews is still a concern. It highlights why actively asking for genuine patient feedback is important.
It sounds like the whole landscape of these rating sites is pretty fragmented, too.
It is. The U.S. has the most commercial PRWs, but the quality varies. And having so many sites actually kind of dilutes the reviews, spreads them thin.
Making it harder to get a clear picture.
Right. Though, interestingly, the number of these sites seems to be shrinking slowly over time. There might be some consolidation happening.
Which could be good. Maybe lead to more reviews per site.
Potentially, yeah. Better review density, maybe better quality overall. And we have to remember, as the digital native generations get older, become the main patient group, these sites will only become more influential.
Because they show up high in Google searches.
Exactly. Often right at the top when you search for a doctor's name. So it's really becoming crucial for vascular surgeons to engage with these platforms to promote the specialty and their own practices.
Okay, we've looked at education, training, ratings. Let's shift gears one last time and talk about the internet for building a professional image or a brand. Social media is obviously huge. How's it being used in medicine, specifically vascular surgery?
Social media, yeah, its power to connect people rapidly gives it huge promotional advantages for healthcare.
Like reaching a big audience.
Huge audience. Allows for transparency, global reach, you can drive traffic to websites. Great for promoting a professional image or brand.
Are hospitals and clinics using it much?
Oh, yeah. A significant percentage of U.S. healthcare organizations are active on social media. Studies have even found correlations between a hospital's Twitter or Facebook following and its reputation scores or rankings.
Wow. So social media presence actually links to perceived quality.
Mhm.
What about individual practices?
Well, research in fields like plastic surgery showed a pretty good return on investment for social media promotion, measured by patient referrals.
Okay.
And many professional medical associations, including the Society for Vascular Surgery, SVS, have active social media accounts.
How does SVS compare to others?
Well, if you compare follower counts of SVS to, say, dermatology organizations, there's a noticeable difference. SVS tends to have fewer.
Why might that be?
Could be lots of reasons. Size of the organization, maybe the nature of the treatments means less direct patient engagement online compared to dermatology. Member activity online, global popularity. Hard to pinpoint one thing. But a vascular surgery practice could use social media effectively.
How? Like the plastic surgeon.
Yeah, similar ways. Sharing patient success stories carefully, respecting privacy, of course. Explaining common vascular conditions in easy-to-understand language. Answering general patient questions.
So the level of engagement varies by specialty. What about individual vascular surgeons? Are they using it much?
It seems usage depends on specialty and practice setting. Plastic surgeons, especially those in private practice doing cosmetic work, they tend to be much more active than, say, gynecologists or primary care docs.
Can they use it for?
Branding, definitely.
Sure.
Attracting new patients, public education. Over half of those private plastic surgery practices actually track patient referrals coming from social media. It's a key metric for them.
And they see positive results.
They report increased visibility, low-cost advertising, new referrals, positive feedback. It seems to work for them.
Why isn't there as much focus in vascular surgery then? Just less research, maybe?
That could be a big part of it. The lack of similar research in vascular surgery might mean there's just less emphasis on it.
Good.
Experts do recommend maintaining active social media profiles because search engines like Google often prioritize your own profile over those third-party rating sites we talked about. Gives you more control over your online image.
Okay. So maybe more research and guidance from societies like SVS on social media would be helpful?
Very likely, yeah. It seems like an area with untapped potential for the field.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. Wow. From the perils of online patient info to the potential of social media branding for surgeons. Let's try and wrap up with the key takeaways from this deep dive.
Absolutely. I think the first thing is just acknowledging the internet's essential and growing role in healthcare. It's undeniable.
Can't ignore it.
But the quality of online patient education, written or video, is highly variable. That's a huge takeaway. And patients often struggle with the complex language.
Readability is key.
Definitely. Which means providers really need to be aware of this landscape to guide patients effectively.
Okay. What else?
For physician training, more peer-reviewed operative videos on open platforms like YouTube seem needed, given the quality issues with a lot of current content.
A call for better resources there?
Yeah. We also noted the sort of low engagement of vascular surgeons on those physician rating websites. That's an opportunity, perhaps.
Room for improvement.
And finally, social media. It offers considerable potential for professional branding, patient outreach, public education within vascular surgery, even if it's maybe underutilized currently.
Great summary. And on that note, here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to consider. Given how fast this digital world is changing and how deeply it's woven into patient care and professional life, what innovative strategies could vascular surgery adopt
Good question.
to really ensure this online ecosystem serves the best interests of both patients and practitioners? Maybe proactive content creation, collaborative quality control, new ways to engage online.
It's definitely a landscape ripe for innovation and certainly for critical thinking.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.